Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to HMP. And finally, after 8 years and 500 episodes, we are finally reviewing The Dark Knight. And joining me today for this auspicious occasion, he just wants to watch the world burn, sweet Shanzi Kovacs from the internet.
I'd never seen this movie until this week.
Oh, my Lord. And he's not wearing hockey pads, mostly because he refuses to be involved in sports in any way, shape, or form. Bruce Leslie.
I'm not the prickly pear you need. I'm the prickly pear you deserve.
Oh my goodness. And we you deserve this, because let me tell you, if you are a fan of this show and you've been around for these 500 episodes, boy oh boy have you been a patient dirty baby over here, aren't you? My goodness. When we started this show, nigh on almost 8 years ago at this point, one of the things that we did, at least my thought pattern is I don't want to cover The Dark Knight right up top, because at the time, and again, remember, 8 years ago at this point, it was almost kind of like the undisputed, this is the best superhero movie ever. And I think we all felt like if we talked about it, everybody would just go, oh, they've covered The Dark Knight. Who gives a crap about whatever else they think? So for whatever reason, for that reason and probably a couple more, we just put off The Dark Knight. We reviewed all the other Nolan Batman movies, but specifically kept this one off. And, we just figure, hey.
Well, we were also saving it for something special. And I would say that the 500th episode is something special indeed.
Indeed it is. But before we get to The Dark Knight and everything, we do want to say a giant thank you to the people that support this program over at patreon.com/HMP. Those awesome people get pre-show, post-show, Dinger Zone. And in this Dinger Zone, I think we learn a little bit about ourselves and maybe a little bit about the world. That sound good? Does that sound like does that sound
a lot about living and a little about love?
Yeah. Any Alan Jackson song, you can pretty much put that in. That's a Patreon episode right there. I'm not going to lie to you.
Cornbread and chicken.
No shirt, no shoes, no problem.
No problem at all. Because that's the best thing. Patreon, it's like whatever you believe that this show is worth, be it $1 on up, just throw it in there, get some extra product at the exact same time, and we really appreciate all of you guys. And if you can't do that, for the heaven's sake, just jump over to the iTunes, give us a 5-star review, aka Humdinger.
Humdinger.
And we appreciate that one as well. Oh, you know what? It's been a second. Let's do this. That is the wrong button.
Fails.
That's the one. Oh my goodness. And Peter has sent us an email, everybody.
Huh?
He says, hello, HMP crew. As always, you don't have to read my email on the show, but I wanted to send you guys an email with a congratulations on hitting 500 episodes. Your shows are always the first thing I throw on Monday mornings. To me, your show is the ultimate movie podcast because it's almost like sitting and listening to my own friends talk on and on about movies. Well, we're your friends, Peter. That's for sure. Come on, man. The other thing I appreciate about HMP and your other shows is that they are always shifting. The shift away from just superhero movies towards movies in general is refreshing, and it brought a new level of excitement to your community and you guys. Thanks for all of your projects. That's from Peter, a.k.a. Not So Bad Looking. Well, thank you, Peter.
Yeah, man, that's awesome.
Yeah, we appreciate that.
And, that's we just wanted to say, thank you to all of you guys, really, because I think I think all of us thought we'd be amazed if we got to 100 episodes.
Perhaps.
I don't know, but at the same time too, it's always been fun, and it's been great because of you guys. And Peter's one of those people, obviously, with his fancy, not so bad looking nickname there and everything. He is one of the Patreon supporters. So thank you, Peter, and all of you other fine folks. Let's close up the mailbag.
Fails here.
And as always, if you'd like to send us an email, you can do so at heromoviepodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Let's get into it, boys. It's been a minute, so let's do it. This is the IMDb plot line for The Dark Knight. As we all know, IMDb 100% correct in everything they say and or do. When the menace known as the Joker wreaks havoc and chaos on the people of Gotham, Batman must accept one of the greatest psychological and physical tests of his ability to fight injustice. That's horrid. Is that what you thought about what psychological and physical test is Bruce Wayne going through in this film for this to be that log line?
I say he's being tested.
I'm sure he's tested it. Like, what a crock. Anyways, this was, the movie itself he didn't write this. He didn't write the log line, I'll tell you that much. But this is written by Jonathan Nolan and Christopher Nolan. Jonathan Nolan, of course, wrote with Christopher Nolan.
On. I thought that the top credited writer was David Goyer.
No.
I swear, I always thought that this is how Goyer managed to keep.
I think
his
that was the
career alive.
first one. I think that he may have had a little bit
Okay.
on the first one.
I thought he had a credit on this.
Now, this is Jonathan and Christopher Nolan. Jonathan also did Interstellar and The Prestige, and of course, Westworld. He went off and did that by himself. He's the American brother of the two, even though they're both, I think, both born in America. Directed by Christopher Nolan. Do I need to tell you about one of the most successful and celebrated modern filmmakers? I don't know. Let's just, before we get to my little kind of super quick list, let's just go ahead and do that. Because this is 500 episodes. You guys have been waiting long enough. So let me just break this down. Just the cast. I'm only going to talk about the cast in my little breakdown of this beloved superhero film because this sucker's got everything. We just talked about him. Christopher Nolan, at the height of his Hollywood power. His little brother, Jonathan, tagged along. I don't think Jonathan actually gets enough credit that he actually deserves. We'll talk a bit about that. Christian Bale giving his everything in this role as per usual. Gary Oldman in one of his great low-key roles that he gets so much better at as he ages, which is fun. Michael Caine is Michael Caine, no different. Also, Morgan Freeman is Morgan Freeman. Again, we're not acting too much. We're just glad these guys are there. Hollywood sweetheart Eric Roberts, Willie Fichtner's here, Tiny Lister, Spawn, Maggie Gyllenhaal is here. Thanks for coming, Maggie. Cillian Murphy is here. We got Dave DeSmalchin, who may be in the running for guy in the most superhero movies out there.
Well deserved.
This is his second role, by the way. This is kind of nuts. We got Rusty Griswold makes an appearance. Nestor, the best lashes in the game. Carbonell nearly gets assassinated. Aaron Eckhart doing the Lord's work in this movie, where he gets zero of the praise, but you can understand that when we revisit the role that would win him the Oscar and the role he's best remembered for in a career that's far more than just a Joker. Heath Ledger is amazing, but we got so much to talk about. This movie's got everything.
And it was a story by credit that Goyer got, so that makes a lot more sense.
That doesn't even count.
This is just far too complex for Goyer to have even done the punctuation.
Well,
Goyer would have thrown in Mr. Sinister or something like that.
I was going to say, if this was a Goyer movie, there'd be a guy whose name is like Eric Batman.
It's my cousin, Eric Batman.
I love that idea.
How long had it been since you guys had seen this movie?
It'd probably been 5 years for me.
Oh yeah, easy. Since we've been doing this podcast, the free time on superhero stuff has been limited. So I don't think I've seen it in a really long time. It was such a joy. I couldn't believe how much it holds up. It's really great.
This is not a movie I can throw on in the background either. So it's like when I watch it, I really want to have nothing to do but just sit and watch this. So that's another reason why it had been a few years. But I will say, going back to when we first started doing this stuff, when I first started doing my own podcasting, I would routinely say that The Dark Knight was not just my favorite comic book movie. It was my favorite movie ever. But since then, I've changed a lot. I've become a lot more pessimistic about some things. I feel like I'm not as much of a bandwagon kind of fan like I might have once been. I might have been too much of a DC apologist. I've also come to actually actively avoid Nolan movies in the last couple of years. That's some things I don't like about him. So I was really curious to go back and revisit this and see if I would suddenly have all kinds of harsh criticisms that I buried before, because I was one of those guys where it's like, instead of picking the team that's best and cheering for them, I'm going to take the team that I've decided I like, and I'm going to try to make arguments for why they're the best, even though they're 3-13 or something stupid like that. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Politics is really the best analogy, but I'm trying to stay away from that.
Good call.
No, I concur. Like, I think it'd been at least 8 years. Like I said, I think I'm in the same boat as Sean here, where it's just like with the podcast and everything. And again, us like actively not wanting to do this until later on, it was just like, why am I going to fill up my time with it? Just, wait till later. And I think it's really been great, because having that separation really made me look at this movie a lot different. And I feel like I appreciated bits of this movie that I didn't before. And we'll certainly get into all of that stuff. And there's certain, and I too also went in, I'm not going to lie to you, a little bit kind of wanting to pick some stuff apart. because it does have that, you know, the reputation of being, you know, one of, if not the best superhero movie ever made. So, you know, especially with doing what we do, we've seen, you know, nearly 500 when you know, count them all together here. So I feel like we have a pretty good standing on that. So when I hear people say that, it's tough to really hear. So I'm like, I want to pick it apart and see what's in there, and we'll see what I kind of came down with.
I went in specifically with a biased agenda to say that the main reason people think Heath Ledger is so good is because it's his last role.
I came in with the exact same thought.
I gotta say, sometimes you just gotta admit,
yeah,
damn, that's some fine acting.
It's so unreal.
He, you know, the thing that this movie has is it has the same thing that Ghostbusters had, the first one, where it's literally lightning in a bottle. Like, you have the filmmakers, the actors, you have like the story is perfect for the time. Like, all of that hits all at once with this movie. And, you know, when it comes to Ledger, when you hear the stories off camera of him with this movie, where he could, like, sometimes people didn't realize exactly what he was doing. So people kind of were like, dude, I don't know if this performance is going to work at all. And then when you see it all strung together, you're like, okay. Yes, this is literally perfect.
And not only is Ledger's performance perfect, but I think that something that Adam alluded to, I don't think enough people give the writing of that character enough credit, because that is a perfectly written character too.
Yeah.
A difficult job to try to take the Joker and set it into this Dark Knight world of Nolan's, and then to do it in such a way, particularly for people who lived through the years leading up to 2008, you can really get what he's going for here. But it's a perfect combination of extraordinarily well written and extraordinarily well acted.
Yes.
There are so many just lines in this movie that have almost been just kind of sadly memed to death in a lot of ways, to where they almost lose their meaning. But, like, again, with some time and separation on this thing, going back, you're like, man, there are just some amazing lines in this movie that, like, I'm sorry, I have to go and credit to Jonathan Nolan as opposed to Chris, because if you look at Chris's solo work, it ain't there. Jonathan's got the heart in it. I always believe that.
You heard what I said at the top, man. I've kind of actively avoid Christopher Nolan, so I give a lot of the credit to Jonathan Nolan. But Christopher Nolan still, I'm going to go ahead and break out my first nitpick, he still seems to love to make people strain to hear dialogue.
Okay.
Like, this isn't as bad as Tenet, but boy, I noticed it really a lot here in the post-Tenet world. Like, oh, he has always kind of tried to do that.
Yes. Let's structure this, because I want to, like, let's get all of our nits up top, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of praise and everything. Let's get our nits and stuff out of the way, and we'll kind of praise as we kind of wrap it up, more or less. But, like, for me, and again, I'm a different category when it comes to this. I love the audio this time. I thought it was fantastic. And now, again, I also have a very expensive surround sound system that I know other people do not have. I understand this, but man,
and didn't you win it?
I won $5,000 of it worth, but the other $5,000 I paid for.
Wow, man.
Wow.
But yes. It's for me at this time and everything, I found it more intelligible than I ever have before. I followed more of the movie than I ever have before. Does it help that there's this giant center channel speaker right in front of my face? Yes. But because his audio's always kind of been like this, and I do have gripes about some of the dialogue choices, but that's all
I have had very well-funded friends invite me over to watch this. And when you crank it up to actually hear the dialogue clearly, you get the problem where once the 18-wheeler explodes, your ears are ringing for 45 minutes. So the louds get a little too loud for me when you get it so you can hear the dialogue. That's just my nitpick.
No, I get that. And frankly, that is how he designs it, for better or for worse.
He's struggled. I think his career has been spent trying to make silent movies acceptable again.
Well, no, I think what he wants, I believe the reason for the dialogue, number one, I think he obviously doesn't like doing, post-sync dialogue. He doesn't like doing that, and understandable. Number two, I sincerely believe he wants these theaters to turn it up loud enough to where the dialogue is heard, and like you said, and then when the explosions happen in Oppenheimer, your entire world shakes. That's what he wants, and I think that's why he does it the way he does. That's my conjecture out of nowhere.
The theory I had, and I have nothing to base this on other than just me trying to think if somebody who obviously has the knowledge and skill and love of filmmaking that Nolan has, I think he's just opposed to compression, because the way that most movies get that dialogue to be a little bit more audible is to just compress it. And I don't mean like compressing from a wave to an MP3. I mean audio compression, where everything seems to have a similar loudness even when it sounds quiet, but then you lose a lot of nuance.
Yeah.
So like, I don't like my music to be compressed, but I like my dialogue in a movie to be compressed.
I can see that. A couple other little nits. I'm a giant Christian Bale fan. I really like him. Sadly, he's one of the weakest parts of the movie, but I don't blame him necessarily for that.
I totally disagree.
Now, I think he's good. Now, let me tell you where part of it comes from, and I'm going to sit there and tell you that part of this is an Adam problem, all right? And, part of it's an Adam problem that was made a problem by Pete Holmes.
Oh, wow. That's a good place to draw some inspiration.
Yeah, well, no. So,
he's talking about the growl.
Yeah, so the growl, and not only the growl, it's something else that Pete did that like you don't really notice until I watched it this time, and it's like, ooh, that wasn't Pete just doing his goofy face. He was doing Bale's face, which is, just he's acting with his mouth.
A lot of duck lips.
Big time.
That's all that you can see though in the mask. I get that. But here's what.
But he's overemphasizing, and it's like, and now the growling voice was not nearly as bad as I remember.
I will tell you this, and I understand movies are not filmed in order. I mean, even my low ball project's not filmed in order. But still, I have the feeling like the growl gets worse in each act. And I don't know if he's trying to communicate something about he's losing Bruce Wayne to Batman as the growl gets worse and worse. I don't know if he's going for something there. But by the end is when it's really comical, is in the third act, which, if we're still on the nitpicking stage, I don't know if this is a nitpick or not, but I actually paused and checked the timer. The third act starts with 54 minutes left. That's a pretty long third act, but this is also a 2.5 hour movie, right?
Yeah, but honestly, there's the last half hour is probably a little sloggier than it needs to be. Like we're nitpicking.
I'd like to introduce this idea.
Please.
If we're nitpicking, we should also tell our favorite parts of this movie.
Oh yeah, we're doing that after.
Okay. Because I only really have one huge nitpick, having not watched it in so long, which is that this movie is a case of the haves and the have-nots when it comes to acting. Like I think that for the most part, no matter what you put Morgan Freeman in, no matter what you put Christian Bale in, no matter what you put, even Maggie Gyllenhaal in, all of these people there's going to be a level of performance that you can just expect, right? Mm-hmm. But then you contrast that with people who aren't the best actors in the world. Like, look, I love that stuntman who played Spawn. I love that actor. That actor in this movie is ridiculous. Like, he completely took me out of the scene when he's like, "Oh, I hate this guy." Like, it's like, come on, dude. Like, you are not conveying the same level of realism that everyone else is in this movie. Like, there's something very cartoony and almost Batman 66 happening with his performance. It's the same. It's the same thing as it's the Fish Mooney effect, where it's like, you are in a completely different movie than everyone else around you, man.
I would like to see the Michael Jai White side movie.
Where I would be down for that.
He's just hustling off in Gotham.
Me too. I love him, man. I think
love his
he's
interviews.
Great.
I mean, not so much his acting, but I love his interviews when he says, watch, because he's a real life martial artist. And,
yes.
He's had, believe it or not, some beef with Steven Seagal over the years. And he says, I tell anybody who wants to watch and tell the difference between an actor and a martial artist, if he's doing something your dad couldn't do, he might be a martial artist. But Steven Seagal hasn't ever done a single thing on camera that your dad couldn't do. And I loved it when he put it that way.
Fairly true.
And I got to say this too. One of the other things, and it's not his fault at all, But one of the things that totally took me out of this movie is Gary Oldman, because I've been watching his show on Apple Plus.
I've heard that's good.
It's amazing. Slow Horses. You need to give it an episode or two, which makes it feel like homework. But after that, it gets really good, really fast.
At least for me, the Apple Plus shows have had a pretty good track record, so I'll give it a shot.
And Gary Oldman is absolutely the reason to see it. There's a reason why he's Emmy nominated, because his character is so amazing on that show. However, Gary Oldman on Slow Horses might be in the running for most disgusting people living. Like, he is so disgusting, and it's on purpose. Like, he is just so awful and gross and disgusting, and it's all done like the character is doing it for a reason, and it's just the worst. And then you see him in this movie where he's like handsome and like got his stuff together and straight laced, like not funny, and it's and all of these things, and it's like man, how far we have fallen since 2008, dude. It is crazy.
And Batman is as a character is still amongst my favorites, no matter how old I get. So this is probably my favorite Gary Oldman role from a guy who's had a lot of great roles.
I don't mean to get political here, but your political views aren't hampering your love of Batman at all.
No, because it's more like as a kid thing, man. I mean, I love Rorschach. My political views are nowhere near Rorschach. I admire the character because I know the writer doesn't share those views, and he's written specifically to expose the hypocrisy of characters like Batman. So I love it. But still, Batman, he looks cool. His gear's cool. His gadgets are cool. That kind of stuff I like.
Are we still on nits?
I got a little nit because he got
one nit left, so I'll let you guys go or whatever.
You just mentioned it there though, Bruce. There's part of this that made me just go like, I question what you know about Batman, because it feels like when we get to the point where we have the mesh cell phone network and everything, and we can basically spy on anybody anywhere. I understand that, like, his like, oh, we got to do it, but like, I just don't see Batman doing that ahead of time and then having Lucius Fox be the guy to be like, hey, man, that ain't cool. Batman should know that that's not cool from the get-go.
I think that's a feature, not a bug, and worthy of discussion as we move on.
Okay.
I have to say the introduction of Lucius Fox into popular culture, because I know he's been in the comic books forever, but just how they utilize him, how he's cast here, it's such a welcomed thing that, like, just to add to the realism of Batman, because when you're putting it together, like when you're a kid and you're like, yeah, Batman's got all this stuff and it's awesome, but once you're a teenager and you're like, he couldn't possibly have all that stuff, and you're trying to poke holes in your favorite things because that's what teenagers do, and then to have this Lucius Fox character be the one who's actually giving him his armament, like that's a really cool thing.
And you get everyone's favorite grandpa in Morgan Freeman. Who doesn't love Morgan Freeman? The guy comes on screen and you just smile because it's Morgan Freeman.
Well, I knew this one warden down at Shawshank that didn't like
Fair enough.
But my final nitpick, the only nitpick I have, and it's a big one, and it involves the ending.
Okay.
But I think they should have ended this movie with Joker swinging on that rope, fade to credits, fade to black. I don't think we needed that little post thing where Batman lives out his martyr complex and he tries to make Two-Face. I think we should have just not known what happened to Two-Face.
I totally
really
agree.
think, and because I love a good story more than anything else, and I think the story is just more impactful if the last thing you see on the screen is Joker hanging upside down from that string, swinging back and forth and laughing as helicopters are flying around.
Agreed.
That really drives home Jonathan Nolan's point in this movie.
we saw a spot, and honestly, I remembered it as the last shot of the film, but it is certainly not. Him in the hanging out of the backseat of the cop car.
Wow, really?
My brain said that was the last shot of the film.
That's neat. the guy that made the Joaquin Phoenix movie pretty much
that may be where maybe in that spoiled over even more, but
because they're at the end when the whole city's going crazy, he's like sticking his head out of the back of something, and it looks to me like he was totally paying homage to the Heath Ledger Joker.
Yeah, but I like that for an ending. And again, I had circumstances been different, I feel like they certainly would have gone somewhere because it's set up to be. It's so set up to have more Joker in some fashion.
Yeah, well, that was the plan
because he got away, and I just it. We got such an amazing. I'm so pleased with what we got. So happy with what you got. But boy, it breaks your heart to think of what could have been.
Yep.
But there's definitely also a part of you that needs to think, man, The Dark Knight Rises wasn't a great movie, and would it have broken our heart if Heath Ledger's Joker had been handled poorly in that? You never know what might have been.
They could not. They might not have stuck the landing. He may have just screwed everything up, and it just have been terrible. So you never know. Blessing in disguise. I mean, I don't want to say it like that necessarily, but you know what I mean.
I definitely don't want to say that.
No, that's a little. Even then, when it came out, I was like, oh, maybe not like that. My last kind of big little nitpick. It's. I'm sorry. It is one of those. Maggie Gyllenhaal's just not very good in this.
And is it Tom Cruise's fault that she's in this?
Yes.
Is that specific?
Yes, it 100% is. Yes.
I always heard his ego would not allow Katie Holmes to be in a movie that was going to be competing with maybe a Mission Impossible film or something that summer.
But crazy. She's just not great. And especially the scene that nails it home, because there's a couple that she's fine in. There's a couple scenes she's fine in, but the one that you just go oh gosh, is when she's, desperate and calling on the phone and I'm here, blah, 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 and all that, where she's supposedly in peril and about to die. She seems as if she's just got caught after lunch. Yep. I'm just in such a pivotal point of the movie where we're supposed to be going oh man, where's he going? Who's he going to end up saving and everything? And it's just, I don't care if she dies. And that's bad. That's not good for your film.
No boy.
I also think when she's doing the voiceover of reading that letter.
Yeah.
I thought that was a little flat. I would have preferred to have Christian Bale doing the VO of his own voice in his head when he's reading it.
I think that there's a thing.
No, he burns it because he never gets to read it. That's the point of that, though.
Oh, I think it's Michael Caine who reads it.
Yeah, Michael Caine reads it and then burns it so he doesn't see it.
Yeah, because I know Michael Caine brings it up in the next movie.
I think there's a thing with actors and voiceovers, because the worst voiceover, I think we can all agree, is the Harrison Ford Blade Runner voiceover.
Yeah,
intentionally bad though.
You can literally tell he does not want to be doing it.
But I suggest it's the way that people should watch Blade Runner for the first time, though, is with the narration.
Guys, you got to give me a minute, okay?
Sorry.
No, keep going, but give me a minute.
Yeah. I see. Okay. I thought we were just we'll let you talk. It's fine.
Well, we cut you off too soon because you're really going to go into the voiceover of Harrison Ford.
But it's an important part, because without that voiceover, you may be lost if you've never seen Blade Runner before. So while there's 8 billion cuts of Blade Runner out there, go with the original theatrical the first time and then start branching out from there. That's just your little tip from Uncle Movie Adam.
So let's start going into the positives in the analysis here, Adam.
Okay.
And then Sean can catch up with us in just a moment. But tell me, I don't know, do you have a particular favorite part you want to mention? Because I have a favorite moment, but I mean, my favorite part is going to be more like story analysis and what I think Jonathan Nolan is allowing us to ask. And I also want to go into this saying that I'm kind of from the camp that authorial intent has nothing to do with the true meaning of art. So what I talk about may not be what Jonathan Nolan intended, but I think it's a valid conversation.
Yeah. For me, one of the things that really kind of stuck out this time was a lot. How did you watch this, by the way?
With both eyes open.
Yes, yeah. Streaming, I'd imagine, HBO?
I watched it on Max.
Max, there you go.
I've got it on Blu-ray. I watched it on Max.
And I asked that because I wonder, was it just 235 the whole time, or did they open up for the IMAX scenes?
To be honest, I couldn't tell you. I'm so familiar with the IMAX scenes that in my mind, I say they opened up, but now that I think back, I don't remember seeing the screen visibly change.
Yeah.
But in my mind, I've seen it enough to know when it's supposed to change for the truck.
Yeah, I get that. That is one thing that I really like. Just watch very specifically this time is his care of the IMAX shots is so much more than so many of his other shots. There are some action things where I'm just like, whew. He's gotten so much better with action in the last couple of years, because the Batman fighting in this is pretty pretty crummy. I
Well,
wish
even at the time it was somewhat polarizing, but it doesn't bother me because what he was going for, in my opinion, what I've kind of heard other people say and I agree with, is a more realistic look. Because if you know, UFC is getting huge in 2008, and if you watch real people fight, it doesn't look like when superheroes fight. And I think he was trying to bring some verisimilitude into it.
Yeah, but well, here's the thing: if you're gonna do that, then you need to shoot it interesting. Because if you're gonna stage it boring, you need to shoot it interesting. That's or vice versa. Or if you're gonna, or like the great classic martial arts films where we just sit this wide angle out, and let them go. We keep the camera work simple for the crazy footwork, or vice versa.
Well, I also think that the fighting is probably the least important thing about this movie. Even
Oh
in the
yeah, but you
action, the
want,
fighting's the least important action.
but you need that stuff to be good. And in a world where we have we have those Arkham games and stuff, which if you've ever played, boy oh boy, you're just like, man, if Batman fought people even a quarter like how like this is fighting, it would be the most amazing thing in the world. And Batman would move like you'd want Batman, like you would expect Batman to move. Like Christian Bale, I don't imagine Christian Bale's Bruce Wayne like shooting a grappling hook and then hiding someplace in the middle of nowhere. Like that's not who that is. Now, granted, that's not the world that this is in, so to speak.
And
but
with some of the brutality of the fighting and the way it just seemed like bulk strength and armor is how he was winning, I really wanted to picture like the physique of the Ben Affleck Batman in that costume at times, because he's one I believe in using just the brute force. Being a tank is how you get through the fights. There were some times when I really had some fond thoughts of how much I actually do like Ben Affleck in the Batman costume.
No, he looks good, and the costume is better. And again, I'm gonna heap a lot of praise on this. Just listen to me. But I don't like the Batman costume in this or in most of the Nolan stuff. They're all kind of crap. Actually, most of the Batman movie, it doesn't look good. Most of the Batman live action stuff doesn't look great. It just doesn't. And I think Affleck's is probably the closest that we've got to something that looks appropriate. Keaton's Batman's probably second, and then everybody else is just kind of like, oh, what are we doing?
Yeah.
I
just really did try to be a little too real world, probably with Bale's costume, especially when he gets the articulated neck like an action figure.
I understand. I get it, and thankfully now, and I think we can admit this again, being from 2008 until 2024 now. I'm so happy that we are allowed in comic book movies to be colorful and wild and fanciful in ways.
Yeah.
Like it's just bringing that kind of color palette and idea to stuff is just so much better.
Well, I want to go ahead and start talking here from the opening scene about the things I'm seeing in Nolan's story, Jonathan Nolan's story, because it starts right off with impersonator Batman. And of course, the real Batman shows up, he saves the day, and then just kind of treats the impersonator Batman as badly as he treats the criminals. And, he's like, what's the difference in me and you? And his famous quote, I'm not wearing hockey pads. That is a serious born on third base and thought you hit a triple. You know what? We weren't all born billionaires, Bruce, but that doesn't mean that we don't care as much as you do. It's like the person who's already accomplished something wants to just nip in the bud everybody else who has the exact same hopes and aspirations he did. Because he's the have and he's holding down the have-nots. I don't think Jonathan Nolan likes Batman very much. Clearly, he loves the Joker in this story. And I love this touch at the beginning where you get to see the flaw in Batman's reasoning to a degree. It's like he's a hypocrite. Do as I say, not as I do.
I gotta push back. Do you know how he's doing this? He's doing his Batman work by going to drug dealers and just like he himself is a drug dealer with Scarecrow. They are drug dealers who are going and killing other drug dealers. He's not. He says he's doing justice. He's not. He's impersonating Batman and just doing whatever he wants.
Well,
that man's
more
a criminal.
than one of them. There's like three of them that pop out, and he treats them all the same. And I really see this once again. What I'm seeing this story saying is, let's look a little bit like we want to applaud Batman for being cool, but then you step back, and this is a guy, and even Michael Caine, Alfred will point it out to him, like, your rules make no sense. You're a hypocrite. You're saying this, but then you're not doing that. Like how he says he wants to wait till the city doesn't need Batman. And then Rachel says, even if the city doesn't, you always will, Bruce. And he can't admit his own psychopathology here. And I think a big part of what this movie is saying with Batman and the Joker is the difference between good and evil is almost arbitrary, and it depends on who has the power and who doesn't.
Yeah, I think that's I mean, and that's, I would say that could easily be argued as a, Batman and perhaps Western literature writ large.
Well, a lot of Western literature is like, let's cheer for the guy who's out there kicking people's butts.
Yeah.
But I like this because even at the end, it sees before your very eyes, just in case you didn't catch the subtext in the beginning. By the end, okay, Batman is now the villain and Two-Face is now the hero. Even though we both know that's not true, we're going to tell the world that because that's how the world works. And I think he's just calling it out.
Yeah, and again, that was another one another bit that was confusing to me, that was just like, that seems out of Batman character. And it's just like, and you haven't given me enough outside of like, two little, half rousing speeches there and everything of why we believe in Harvey Dent, and Bruce kind of tries to tell us why he believes, but even then I'm just like, that kind of sounds half-assed.
It's just like a figurehead. Yeah, exactly. Give somebody something to rally around. I mean, isn't that so much of what public figures are now? Politics. You don't think the guy you're voting for has any idea what to do, but you're hoping that the people who rally around him agree with you. You know what I mean? It's not like you're really voting for the individual. You're voting for an idea. And I think they expose that pretty good here. Also, who does Joker kill that's innocent?
Nothing comes to mind off the top.
I mean, you could take this characterization of Joker and almost switch him out with Rorschach and you got the same character. I mean, he's killing judges, but he thinks that judges are part of the corrupt system and they are not, given in. And you start to see this and you see how Joker is someone who believed in the system and supported the system and then was thrown away with no support. So he has decided to kind of remake the system by breaking it down and letting it be built back up. I see this as a character that might be kind of popular with some people with like libertarian anarchist points of view.
I like his, like, again, one of the great just lines. This one doesn't get enough praise in this movie that I thought was just like, ooh, so good. Was just look at what I've done with this city with just a couple of gallons of gasoline and some bullets.
Yes.
And I'm just like, yeah.
And Batman has billions of dollars, and it's just kind of showing you the expense that people will go to overcome the truth or to alter the truth. And how easy it is for the real truth to come out. You just need some gasoline and bullets.
Right. And here's the thing. And we also get the thing, why is Harvey Dent called Harvey Two-Face? Now, not only, I mean, I guess, are we to believe that he was only flipping on bad cops?
I think that any kind of politician is going to get some kind of negative name, and a prosecutor's an elected position. So people probably called him Harvey Two-Face because he used to be a defense attorney and he became a prosecutor. It could be something as simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that the movie explains it, but that's fine. I'm used to politicians having negative names given to them.
Speaking of which, what do you like? Because we're just jumping all over the place here. Because let's be frank, everybody's seen this film. If you like, just box office wise, you've seen this one. The Two-Face CGI / I'm sure there's probably a little bit of real stuff in there. How amazing could it have been any better? I was shocked.
It's really good. I mean, I love it.
I mean, like,
as a guy who likes horror makeup, man, I love it. Whatever they did, I don't know, but I love it.
What a beautiful, like, when we do it, because we know that that's what's coming. I mean, the fact that when you see the name Harvey Dent, you know where we're going. You know the avenue we're going to hit down at some point here. And so, when we finally get that, and he's in the hospital, and Gordon's talking to him, and it's just like, so masterful, this kind of just teasing us just a little bit. Like, he turns to Gordon, but we shoot back at Gordon so we don't see it. And then when he turns his head back, that's when we go back to him on the other side. And then when we finally see it, it's just like, it's so masterful. It's grotesque and ugly, but yet you still can't look away from it, which is like the perfect balance.
There's a scene where he drinks a little liquor from a rocks glass and he just drains out through the Jonah Hex side of his face. That just seems so spot on. I loved what they did with the character. The Joker, You have to have the Joker.
Hold on one
If you're
second before we get to the Joker. Because I got one just a pressing
I'm still
question
talking about Two-Face here. But what I was saying is, like, I understand the Joker is such a necessary part of Batman stories. You have to have more Jokers, and we've had a couple more Jokers since this movie.
Yeah.
But you notice we have not had another Two-Face, and I think Two-Face is a character that can be avoided for a few more years because this is the role that defined it to the point you don't really need another Two-Face.
It's tough. And the sad part is that, like, what little bit we got from it, because, like, he's Two-Face for 45 minutes. Maybe.
Yeah, and it's all mostly all in the third act.
Yeah, it's all towards the end there and everything, and it's fine. But I would like to see, you would have liked to see just a lot more of it. And Eckhart's doing so great with it. But my question to you was, is eyeball related? Obviously, tell me
Yeah.
about this eyeball. Like, what could this happen? What am I seeing here? And, like, obviously, let's take away the skin graft portions of it. Let's take away the skin
eyeball.
bits.
You know, the eyeball's clearly like a They Live inspiration, John Carpenter.
Or the
Yeah,
cover
real-
of Evil Dead 2.
Yeah, the real eyeball would be all white by now because he can't blink and it'd dry out and it'd be dealing with exposure.
That
So it
was
just
also
looked
a
like
question
white
there.
sphere.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it looks cool. I mean, it looks cool. That's the rule of cool is all that matters.
Would you say that like looks wise, it looks correct? Because God, it
Yeah,
moves
it looks-
so well and
It
everything
looks
too.
correct
That's
to me,
what I
and
was
have
wild
seen,
about.
I have seen a living person whose eye looked like that before. And it
Yeah,
was
I'd
pretty
imagine.
correct.
That's what I was just like, because I know if anybody was to know if they nailed this one, it'd be you. But, like, that's what I
If it
love.
wouldn't make Sean puke, I would send it to you guys a picture of it. but
The
I
small,
shan't do
the
that.
small eye movements and everything, and even the rapid eye movements when he would go to, like, look from one thing to another, is so good. Like, you don't see that good in most CGI movies today. It doesn't like just look moist and correct.
I know, man. It's pretty good there. But I love the Two-Face in here. I think that, like I said, I wish they would have ended the movie with Joker dangling and Two-Face is left up in the air, and Two-Face could have been a big part of the next movie, which I think that movie
Why?
could have
Yeah,
used
exactly.
something better.
Like, let's just take that much into account, because by before the movie itself comes out, we know of Heath Ledger's passing, right? So at that point, why don't you just kind of rejigger the machine a little bit to go like, okay, maybe we can
Little
throw Harvey
retcon.
Dent in here. Maybe he can be kind of the more whatever. I don't know.
I really think Harvey Dent would have been an interesting character in Dark Knight Rises, and you don't know which way he's going to go. Is he going to lean more towards Bane? Is he going to lean more towards Batman? He gets to flip his coin a lot to help him decide.
I've always liked the idea in, like, Two-Face is just like as a conceptual character and everything, and the duality, the flipping of the coin, and having that be the deciding factor of fate, and always the case of, like, if he can't make that decision, then, if the coin's not there to make the decision, he can't make the decision. I love stupid, like, weird comic booky crap like that. And man, it would have been so cool to see that kind of just explored a little bit more. And especially when it looks as cool and as good as that does, because man, oh man, this could have looked like absolute. And I was waiting for it. I was waiting for it to be bad, like not Tommy Lee Jones and Batman Forever
All right,
bad.
Here's a
bad.
textbook picture of a patient I saw that I took for a textbook. Don't look at it if you have a weak stomach, Adam. I didn't send it to Sean.
I am definitely not looking at it.
Yeah, I didn't send it to you, Sean. I just sent it to Adam.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess that's pretty accurate.
Yeah, pretty accurate for Two-Face. Isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that would, Sean, that would have put you in a coma.
Yeah, thank you.
But yeah, Eckhart is doing a lot of really great stuff with this. I just wish we could have had some Two-Face further on after this, because he's just eating it up, and it's good stuff.
And now, what do you guys think about the theory of Joker is a former soldier from the War on Terror?
Well, I know where this came from, and I love the idea. I love the thought of that, and I love that we'll never know.
Yeah. Now let's talk about never knowing too, because that was the thing when I first saw this in the theater. And the Joker goes through and into the scene and, starts with do you know how I got these scars?
Right.
I was
everybody
angry.
moaned. Everybody
was
groaned.
Yeah, well, I don't remember, but at least for me, I was just like, oh God, they did it.
Yeah.
I can't believe it's so stupid. Why on earth? And then not a half hour later, he does the story again and the story changes. And I retroactively go, I apologize, movie.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Heavily influenced
So good.
by Alan Moore here. Heavily influenced by The Killing Joke, where he says, if I have to have a history, I prefer it to be multiple choice.
Mhm.
And that comes out to play here also from The Killing Joke. Insanity is just like gravity. All that it takes for someone to experience it is a little push.
Yeah, there's
That's
so
more
much
or less
that
from the one bad day theory in Killing Joke.
Mm-hmm.
And hey, if you're going to steal from the best, right?
Yeah, that's what
it's like Jim Starlin said. Hey, did you steal the idea for Thanos? He said, yeah. And if you're going to steal, you steal from Kirby. So that's what I did.
Yeah, you're supposed to do this stuff, like all the Spider-Man stuff. When all that stuff's supposed to happen.
This movie does that twice, by the way, where not only do they know that you don't want to see this thing, but they then go, this is how clever this movie is. Because the first one, all that I always think of is the Joker coming up with the multiple reasons why he has the scars on his face. The second thing is at the beginning of this movie, which I need to get to in a minute, but where he looks goofy in the suit that at the beginning of this movie because he can't turn his head, and it becomes a real issue that he can't turn his head, and it's like, God, how it just looks so dumb. And then he goes to talk to Lucius about changing the costume, and it's
the
just like
articulated head.
And it's like, this movie is so clever. It's what makes this movie hum.
Well,
it's just how clever they're writing.
I do happen to know that one actually came out of necessity because from filming Batman Begins, that was a complaint that Christian Bale had. So they wrote it into the movie so they could of change the stuff around. So literally Christian Bale could move his head. And they're like, you know what? That might make an interesting story. Give us an excuse to X, Y, Z. So good stuff.
I don't know if you guys have gotten to your favorite parts of this movie, but this is my favorite part of this movie. It is the fact that the first two scenes, or the first two big plot point moments of this movie, are back to back the best 1-2 punch of a movie, period. Because the first one is the bank robbery, which is just one of the best opening scenes to a movie ever.
Good.
It tells you everything you need to know about the Joker. It's just absolutely perfect. And then to follow that up with the skyhook scene and the idea and what all needs to happen, and it all makes sense, and they explain it well, but not to the point where like it's just 10 minutes of somebody telling you everything that needs to happen. It is some of the best storytelling I've ever seen. And to have it go 1-2 like that, it's just incredible.
My favorite part, far and away, it all goes around the big action scene.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you call it the big mid-movie set piece. But my absolute favorite part is when Joker is standing in the street and Batman is rushing towards him on that little escape pod bike thing. And he says, yes, do it. Yes. Yeah. Like his dream. He is so miserable. He wants to die, but he's decided he wants, you hear the term suicide by cop. Well, he wants suicide by Batman. And suddenly this has become his challenge. And to see just how broken and how much pain Joker is in that moment, and how he wants all the pain to be relieved. And then Batman just swerves at the last second. That to me tells me everything I need to know about this character. And it really makes sense too, when I hear him talking about, a busload full of soldiers die and nobody thinks twice about it. That's their job. But gee, somebody tries to kill one little mayor and the whole town goes crazy. I mean, his whole idea of the arbitrary nature of who we give value to on human life. And then I love it because this does things in 3 steps, a lot like George R.R. Martin. And I love the 3-step reveal. And just in case you haven't gotten the idea yet, then at the end, we have the boat conundrum where he's showing you that the morality of people is the same. Some people just have different circumstances than others. And I mean, it's just really trying to show us in a post 9/11 world. I really think that colored this story a lot, even though 7 years.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I agree. I totally agree.
What is good, what is evil, what is right, what is wrong, all just depends on where you're standing at the moment.
Yeah, but that the prisoner ship would have blown them up in 5 seconds.
I don't know, man. I don't agree.
I don't know.
What if Tiny Lister's on it in real life?
If Tiny Lister's on it in real life, he's going to overpower anybody that says. I do love how, like,
what if John Coffey from Green Mile is on it?
They got to fight. I would, let them fight. So I love though how he does everything just softly and quietly. You like, because he's a beast of a man. He's sitting over there in the corner, and we shoot over to him several times. So we're clocking him. We're seeing what his thought process is, and he just does it with this soft little voice, just like, hey, here's what's gonna happen. You're gonna do this. You're gonna give me this stuff, and that's just how it is. You can blame me, do all this stuff. Like, it's so good.
Agreed.
I love it. And I love that the take home is overall the people on both boats would rather die than kill, which is something that you can't say about the quote unquote heroes in this movie.
It's the decision that you hope people would make.
Well, that's why you get to write the story.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, if somebody else writes, if Sylvester Stallone writes the story, then Batman has to go in the prisoner boat, beat them all up, throw them off, get the detonator, and then make sure he cuts the blue wire, or is it the red wire? Oh, close your eyes and cut one, and it just happens to be the right
I ain't gonna lie to you. You drop Batman on that boat to whoop everybody out. I'm watching that movie so hardcore. Oh my God. Like I said, man.
Batman on a boat. What a great movie.
It's like those Arkham games, man. I'm telling you, it's that same thing. You just put a billion people in front of him and just watch him whoop butt for like 2.5 hours. Take my money.
Speed 3 prison ferry boat. I want to see Keanu come back. I think we should start wrapping this bad boy up, because I know Sean's got a heart out.
I want to talk about Eric Roberts and how Eric Roberts is in this movie a lot more than I remembered. And you know what?
He is.
He ain't bad.
He's killing it. He is killing it in this thing.
It's kind of amazing that he's in this to me, because he has a reputation of, like, he'll be in any student film if you're within a day's drive. Like, he just works nonstop.
Here is everything
that getting some high profile stuff.
Here's everything that I know. When I said it in the breakdown of Sweetheart Eric Roberts, every person I've ever heard talk about him or has had any kind of interaction has nothing but the glowingest, nicest things to say about Eric Roberts. Eric Roberts apparently is just a dude, just one of those dudes.
And I've heard he works like 360 days.
Well, yeah, because like honestly, he just and he's one of those guys. I think he realizes what his space is and everything, and realizes hey, listen, I want to be a working actor, and this is how you do. This is how I do it.
I wonder if we'll keep talking about him later.
Ooh, I think that's a good segue to something.
Boy, I tell you what, you think you had a heart out. All right, let's get to it, everybody. It's not really the 500th time, but we'll call it that just on account of. For the 500th time, we need to find out how this movie relates back 1-to-1 with Sylvester Stallone.
Why, thank you, Adam. I have a prepared statement.
Oh.
Happy quincentenary, Mr. Stallone. This is the 500th episode of HMP, and I can't think of a better gift than hearing from you. I'm on Twitter sometimes, I'm sort of on Facebook, and I'm on Instagram, but I can't remember my username, and I refuse to look it up. The Dark Knight is one of the best movies of 2008, and in 2008, I see that you made Rambo, the 4th movie in a series that should have stopped at the first one. First Blood is your best movie, in my opinion, and anything after that is just a clogged drain pipe and you need to poop outside. I wonder why you haven't reached out yet. The kill count of this movie is an astonishing 466 kills, which averages to 2.59 killings per minute.
Yeah.
Now that's what I call violence volume 12. But today's Stallone Connection comes courtesy of The Specialist, a movie that boasts the talents of you, Sharon Stone, and Eric Roberts. Eric Roberts plays Maroni in this week's review, who's a top mob boss in Gotham. I know that Eric Roberts was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor in Runaway Train, but his role in The Dark Knight is the best role he's had in 30 years, and it can be argued that it's the role he'd be most remembered for. Eric Roberts is still acting today. In fact, he has, get ready for this one.
Oh boy.
59 different credits in 2023 alone.
God
See
bless.
what I was talking about, guys?
Which means if you have a movie and you want that movie to get distribution and you have $250,000 lying around for Eric Roberts to work one day on your film, you could definitely get Eric Roberts.
Yeah.
Maybe he has tax problems. I know he doesn't have an ex-wife problem. He's been married to the same woman since 1992. And really, Good on you, Eric.
In
Roberts.
Hollywood,
awesome.
that's 18
FYI.
lifetimes.
FYI, if it's a totally indie film, I've heard it's closer to 15 grand to get him for a day.
Wow. He's been sober since 1995. He's an animal rights activist. He's close friends with Stone Cold Steve Austin. And the only legal problems he's ever had was a scrape he got into in 1987 because of a drug possession. And he was arrested in 1995 for shoving his wife, which is not a good thing. But if you'll notice, the dates of his sobriety and his arrest match up.
Yeah.
And I think we can all agree that sometimes women get mouthy. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. Why can't I shake the feeling that Eric Roberts seems like sometimes he can be the most difficult person in the world to work with on set? I don't know why. You heard Adam talk earlier. Maybe the problem is with me. I mean, let's be honest, Mr. Stallone. You would know better than I do. You work with him on The Specialist and then later on The Expendables. So if you can tell me why he seems like he could be a nightmare, I'm all ears. Maybe hit me up on Twitter. Sometimes I'm on there. Well, that's all I've got this week for a Stallone connection. 35-year veteran of film, Eric Roberts. I hope to hear from you soon. Your pal, Sweet Shawnsy, the Hartford Hellion.
He only made 8 movies in 1996. He's really picked up the pace.
I have a copy, a DVD copy of Best of the Best, signed by Eric Roberts.
Nice.
That's awesome.
It does. It says because
I bet you at this point he just signs anything you give him because he can't remember if he was in it or not.
Well, he's definitely on the cover of Best of the Best for sure. But he signed it because like my brother was there at a convention and I was like, hey man, if you see Eric Roberts, have him sign this, and he did. And Eric Roberts, he wrote on there again, going from this like maybe next time or something like that. Whatever the line is from that flick, and then signed his name. I was like, that's really cool. Good old Eric Roberts. All right, let's get down to it here on the 500th episode of HMP. It ain't gonna be no different, man. We got our own patented Robin rating system. Bruce, where does The Dark Knight from Holy Cow 2008 fall in the Robin rating system for you?
Well, I wanted to re-examine this movie with new cynical eyes 15 years after I first saw it. And as bad as I hate to say it, I think I might even like it more now than I did then. This still is not just the best superhero movie ever made, not just the best comic book movie ever made. This is one of the best movies ever made, and I'm going to stand by that for at least another 15 years. So there's no way I give this anything other than the absolute highest Dick Grayson, like Burt Ward incarnation Dick Grayson.
Whoa, goodness, that means that. Never mind, Sean.
In an age where Marvel movies are starting to look more and more like Shark Boy and Lava Girl,
Yeah.
It is so nice to see this movie and to see just the care and the beauty. The shots are gorgeous, of course, because it's Nolan. The script is so tight. The performances are great when they're great. I mean, it's a Dick Grayson all day, man. It is top tier, this movie. It's not my favorite superhero movie of all time, but boy, it is right up there. It's top 5, definitely.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it at the top of my list, but it certainly, like I said, I went into this with a little bit of maybe just angst on my shoulder, just kind of going like, all right, let's see this movie that everybody screams. And when you try to pick it apart and there's been a lot of things, a lot of nits that I've picked within this episode, and I'm sure a lot of people might listen back and to this point and think, boy, Adam just really didn't like this movie, but I'm only just kind of pointing out some things that I just never really kind of hit me before. But so much of this is just so darn good. Heath Ledger is just amazing. Like, and again, that was another one where I was trying to like go like, all right, maybe we just get God, I wish he lived so he could have gotten this award while alive. So there would be zero chance anyone would ever be like, well, because he absolutely deserves, especially when you look back at what was out that year. Yeah, there's a reason why. And like, I tried to pick apart in like little pieces. I'm like, let me find a little something that I don't like, a choice that he made that I didn't care for, and it ain't there. it ain't there. And it's kind of astounding. And I'm like, and it's the saddest part to see just this guy who had what a wild and varied career for what little bit, that he, brief career, because it just cut short and everything. But man, oh man, what we could have gotten not only in another Joker performance, but just performance in and of itself is just like, it's so sad, but I'm just amazed and so glad that we've got, such a wild and different Joker performance than we've ever had before. And no one can do this again. That's for darn sure.
And he shows the scariest thing on earth is someone who's not afraid of death and not motivated by money, because you have no way to control that guy.
Yeah, they really understood who the Joker was in this, and I think that's one of the reasons that it was as successful as it was, is because Chris and Jonathan really understood what lies in the back of the Joker. And of course, a lot of that stuff, like you said, took from Killing Joke and a whole bunch of other places. But they understand Batman as a character, and frankly, that's what a lot of problems that we have with a lot of comic book movies and stuff these days, is that these people don't understand what make these characters tick. So a little more of knowing the characters that you're representing to your fans there, folks. That would be nice. All right, let's wrap it up here, everybody. That's 500, man. 500 episodes. Who would have thought we would have gotten this far? And we finally got to The Dark Knight. Was it as good as you thought? I hope so. And we're going to come back and we're going to do this next week. What do you say? 501?
Sounds good.
501. We'll do that. And Bruce, where can we find more of your work on the internet?
Hey, I really want people to go check out Werewolf Fighter. It's on YouTube now. It had just a little bit too many ads in it, so I went back and changed the settings where there shouldn't be any mid-roll ads, just an ad before it starts, and then you can watch the whole thing uninterrupted. But please search for Werewolf Fighter on YouTube. Search for Bruce Leslie on YouTube, or at Anime Dad. Where any combination of those things, please just go check out Werewolf Fighter. I worked really hard on it with my friends and family. It was a lot of fun, and I'd like to share it with as many people as I could. So just go check it out and maybe leave it a thumbs up or comment or something. I'd love that.
Sean, what part of Atlanta are you busking in this week? and do you have a set list prepared, or you just kind of go on the fly?
Since I live so close to Little 5 Points, that's where I'll be busking. I'll be playing on with my brass band.
Ooh.
We'll be playing the Bobby Brown classic.
My Prerogative?
My Prerogative.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, listen, My Prerogative is on the list as a Jim mainstay there. Don't know why.
It's the opposite of a one-man band. It's 5 people, but they share one tuba.
We each take a turn blowing and pushing a valve. It's the weirdest barbershop quartet you've ever seen. That is it, everybody. Next week, we're talking the first 3 episodes of the One Piece live action series on Netflix. So go check that out. We'll talk about that show, compare it to the anime. Hey, what do you know? We got Anime Dad here to talk about that. I'm sure we'll get into all that. That is it, everybody. Join us next week for 3 episodes of One Piece live action on Netflix. For Sweet Sean's and Comebacks from the internet, Bruce Leslie, I'm Matt Porches. Stay super, everybody.
Bye, Marty and Evie.